Welcome back, players. I'm Dan Levinson. I'm joined by Tommy Coolin, and we are about to start the top four match between Jake Skirchek and what's his name again?
Vincent Maltavo.
Vincent Maltalvo. I'm sorry. I'll remember. I know I even what I did. We even did
what's
that
his
match.
name? What is
What's
his
his
name?
name? Well, we need more of him.
Yeah.
So we are going to go momentarily right into this now between this top four match. We have their teams on us right now, so why don't we just go over them while they get set up?
Yeah, sure. Vincent actually has Gardevoir, which is something that we haven't seen a lot of in this tournament. So you can go ahead and read off the mons. We'll talk a little bit more about it.
Cool. So Vincent's team of Gardevoir, Zapdos, Landorus, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, and Ferrothorn. And just quickly, Jake's team is going to be Tapu Koko, Politoed, Incineroar, Gothitelle, Ludicolo, and Mawile.
But Gardevoir specifically, we haven't seen too much of it in this tournament. And it's something interesting since with Mega Salamence getting the nerf to Aerialate, Pixelate also got nerfed and is doing a little bit less damage, which really hurts Gardevoir, which really capitalized on getting a lot of those 2-hit KOs back in 2015. But it picked up a new friend that wasn't necessarily that well known at the beginning of the format. Incineroar has actually been a stellar partner for Gardevoir. Just having a very bulky fake out that can also hit a lot of the steals that Gardevoir has trouble hitting, like namely Aegis Slash. We also see something like Ferrothorn, which is really good at handling opposing rain teams as well as all of the Tapus that are running around. So it's a very interesting team, and I think there's a lot of really cool stuff on it. Landorus, Tapu Fini, and Zapdos is that core that we've been seeing on so many of these standard teams, and it's just a very standard team with a couple of mons that we're not necessarily seeing too much of, but are also very strong mons overall.
I mean, likely also, like you mentioned, having the chance to get the fake out with the Incineroar, setting up the Trick Room with the Gardevoir, it just puts pressure and really protects Incineroar and Gardevoir mostly. They're a great match and perfect pairing up. So depending on what Vincent decides to go with, that is a pretty solid lead for him to go with. But for Jake's team now, since he does have the rain team being the Ludicolo and the Politoed, both of them are going to be a pretty all right lead for him to lead with as well. But we are going right underway between both players here. Vincent on the top of your screen leading with the Landorus and the Incineroar, but Jake leading with Gothitelle and Mawile. So already both players are going to be exchanging Intimidates.
Yeah, this Shadow Tag is actually really important for this match, I believe, since there's a lot of mons on Vincent's side of the field that can give Jake a little bit of problem. That Ferrothorn, namely, is one of them. These are two Pokemon that do not like the rain, and Jake can maybe try and pivot into his Politoed, maybe set up Trick Room, get the rain set up. Hopefully, if he has the Ludicolo, he can maybe even just go for a double switch to make sure he gets the rain set up as soon as possible. Since that Incineroar and the Landers really won't appreciate it, and especially after having this stage of attack reduced after the Intimidate from the Mawile, and they're locked in right now due to the Shadow Attack from the Gothitelle. So. Really good spot.
Well, depending also, Landorus usually carry that U-turn, so he let them switch out and pivot properly, but instead Mawile is going to switch out for that Politoed. So now there's a bit of, we got some drizzle, we got the rain on the field, and Gothitelle is just going to go ahead and go for a Protect this turn. Landorus with the U-turn is going to target that Gothitelle, so won't be able to switch out nicely, but we do get that Z Crystal. It looks like the Black Hole Eclipse.
Not just the Black Hole Eclipse.
But this is the special Incineroar move, as we will see it come out right now. It will be the
Malicious Moonsault. This is one of my favorite Z moves in the game.
See, that's the thing, though, because we don't really see this often, but because of the new Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, it goes perfectly pairing, and we now finally get to see the Z move.
And even through the Protect, still doing a decent chunk of damage to that Gothitelle, which is arguably the biggest threat to Vincent's team. So not necessarily the Gothitelle because of any pressure it puts out, but just because being locked against stuff like the Politoed is really detrimental to Vincent's game plan here. And since it is the Malicious Moonsault, we do know that it is Darkest Lariat as opposed to something like Knockoff here. So could be a little bit rough in terms of trying to pick up knockouts on the Gothitelle if you can't knock off that berry.
Well, Gothitelle switching out for Jake's own Incineroar. Landorus now with the U-turn, so it'll be able to escape out of there, and will likely not have to take that Politoed, mostly either going for an Ice Beam or a Scald. So Vincent really able to make a proper switch here. He does choose to go for that Tapu Fini now, and thanks to the rain boost from Politoed, it'll be able to increase those water type attacks thanks to it. And with Misty Surge ability, gets the Misty terrain. Darkest Lariat, though, from that Incineroar we're gonna see cool target. It goes for that opposing Incineroar, but not gonna be doing a whole lot of damage. But the Scout from Politoed targeting that Incineroar, so taking it well under half now.
Yeah, Jake correctly identifying that the Incineroar can't switch out because the Landorus had the U-turn ability, like you said. But Incineroar locked in the field because of Shadow Tag, so just throwing a Scald into that slot a lot safer. Likewise, so Vincent realizing that he can go for the U-turn, and even if the Gothitelle does decide to switch out and he doesn't pick up the knockout on it, he gets a really good positioning tool in U-turn and being able to switch to top Buffini, which really doesn't care about either the Politoed nor the Incineroar here. Can maybe go for something like a Calm Mind, but just has to be a little bit wary of the potential of Encore on the Politoed.
I was just going to mention that we did see Tapu Fini on his side using Calm Mind early in the tournament, but the switch out for Vincent bringing in his Ferrothorn as Jake also switches out his Politoed in for that Mawile, but thanks to its Intimidate, it will be dropping the attack stat specifically on that Ferrothorn, so won't be able to doing that much damage, but Incineroar now with the Fake Out will be able to prevent Tapu Fini from attacking for this turn.
And we'll see the Leftovers recovery on the top of Fini, which was not the item that we usually see. We oftentimes see one of those 50% berries on the top of Fini, but Leftovers almost always indicates the calm mindset. And Ferrothorn does provide a little bit of trouble for the Rain Mons in the back, but right now it's not doing too much against the Mons that are currently on the field.
So it looks like Jake's is trying to get a better board position here, switching out and bringing in his Gothitelle, but Vincent switching back in his Landorus, so preventing that Mawile from doing a bit more damage, but if it does decide to go for that Mega Evolution, it will get that huge power ability, so Intimidate won't be as effective, but we are going to get the Mega Evolution, and if it does go for targeting either Pokemon, it's still going to be doing a really good amount of damage right now. There's the Muddy Water. Thanks to that boost in Rain, it is going to be able to hit both of Jake's Pokemon here. We'll see if there's going to be any accuracy drops. It does get it onto that Gothitelle, so Gothitelle down one stage in accuracy, but that play rough, that Iron Head does connect onto Tapu Fini, taking it right at about half and restoring a bit of its health thanks to the Leftovers.
Now that play rough doing just under half, the Intimidate showing its use here. I like to see what Vince is doing here. He's bringing in his Landorus whenever he feels the Gothitelle could be switching onto the field. This gives him the pressure to potentially go for something like a U-turn and keep the Gothitelle from completely locking him, give him some options while the Shadow Tag is active. The problem is here, if he wants to go for something like a U-turn into the Gothitelle, he has a risk of activating that Wiki Berry. And if that's the case, Tapu Fini might not be able to pick up a knockout with something like a Muddy Water or a Moonblast here. And if Trick Room goes up, then I think that Jake's going to be in a pretty strong spot.
Vincent now choosing to go for Protect on his Tapu Fini, as Mawile also goes for Protect too. So both players here just trying to stall out and try and catch each other's off guard. But there is the U-turn. Like you mentioned, it will be enough. Picks out the knockout onto that Gothitelle. So already Jake is down one Pokemon, and Landorus is still going to be able to choose who to bring in instead.
Yeah, that's a huge knockout to take there. Yeah. Gothitelle, like we said, is one of the harder Pokemon for Vincent to deal with here. But now that it's gone, you can pretty freely bring in that Politoed now that the rain has run out, reset the rain, make sure that Politoed can't touch the Mawile. We saw that the Intimidate is doing a decent amount to stop the Mawile from touching the Tapu Fini. So maybe you want to start switching out your Mawile, start resetting your attack stat. Hopefully that you'll get a little bit more damage on onto the Tapu Fini once you switch it out and switch it back in. So with the switching to Incineroar here, you could probably see something along the lines of a Fake Out and a switch out on the Mawile. I think Mawile's in a rather rough spot, and it definitely could stay in here, but I think it's rather risky.
Yeah, exactly. But without the rain now, both of Vincent and Jake's Incineroars are able to deal good damage thanks to no rain on the field. But Tapu Fini switching out for Vincent now, bringing in his Landorus. So this is a good time to switch it in. Both of Jake's Pokemon are physically offensive, so we'll be losing a bit of that attack stat, while Incineroar does go for that Flare Blitz, likely targeting that Mawile. So it's going to deal a whole lot of damage and will be enough to secure the knockout against that Mega Mawile. But with that, we do see the recoils putting Incineroar right in the red. But low kick, super effective onto Incineroar thanks to being a dark type, gets the KO on it.
Yeah, with Incineroar taking a little bit of damage there, or it has a little bit of damage on it rather. Landorus can now go for something like an Earthquake. Tapu Fini can go for Muddy Waters, and once Incineroar is removed, then Ferrothorn should just be able to beat this Politoed. So we kind of see the opposite of the the Gothitelle strategy And Vincent using it almost against Jake. He's just picking off threats turn after turn until he has something left that can beat all of Jake's mons. So once he eventually takes out his Incineroar, which cause he's down to the last 2 mons, he should be able to do relatively soon. Once he does pick up the knockout on the Incineroar, the Ferrothorn should be in a much safer spot. The other problem is maybe Landorus has to go for an Earthquake to knock out the Incineroar, and if Polito gets a Scald onto it, could be a little bit troublesome if Incineroar does stick around on the field, but that's a lot of attacks that has to survive through.
There's the U-turn from Landorus. Does target that Politoed, so again, it's going to be able to switch out and again, just reset that Intimidate. So similar to what Angel did in those previous rounds, he just keeps cycling through and just lowering any offensive pressure that Jake's Incineroar can deal. Moonblast from Vincent's Tapu Fini onto Politoed and the Scald onto that Ferrothorn now, but thanks to that Misty Terrain, no chance of any burn here. But Flare Blitz from the Incineroar, does he predict that switch and double targets it? Yes, he does. Does get it and takes it right under half, so a bit of Iron Barbs there, but really good prediction by Jake for this turn.
Yeah, that's a really great play. The only problem here in the SN game is I don't see a way that, Jake can potentially beat this Tapu Fini. The one thing that he could do is, maybe try and set up for a Perish Song endgame, maybe take out the Ferrothorn here. But, if Tapu Fini were to connect with a Muddy Water here and then you don't, you're not able to pick up the knockout on the Ferrothorn, it would all be for, moot points. So, we'll see the forfeit here and we'll move to game 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you mentioned, though. I mean, that kind of would have worked, too, if he had taken out one of the other Pokemon that was on Vincent's side, bring it down to 2-2, and then just trying to take it down to in Perish Song range. And I mean, his Pokemon he still had the Ferrothorn though, so it would have been better if he took out the Ferrothorn first and then perhaps try and set up the Perish Song, but that would have been still pretty close, and I don't know. But anyway, that was a forfeit for game 1, and we are moving on into game 2.
I think it's very clear what Jake has to do in game 2. I think he needs to do one of 2 things. One, he could use the Gothitelle and get a little bit more value out of it in this game, since he was able to trap things in, but wasn't able to effectively pick off knockouts like you want to do with Shadow Tag for the most part. You want to trap something in and pick up a knockout so that your mons in the back can come in relatively safely. Where in that game, Jake really just trapped some things in and got some damage on them, but didn't pick up the knockouts that he needed to really progress his board state. The other thing I could see maybe Jake doing is maybe just going hard in on that rain mode, since Vincent does have a lot of things that are weak to it. He just has to be very careful of the Incineroar specifically. The Ferrothorn. So he needs to preserve his own Incineroar to deal with the Ferrothorn, because otherwise it's very difficult to deal with. But he might be able to just beat him down with the rain mode. We brought Landers, he brought the Incineroar, both of which are weak to water. He brought the Tapu Fini, which is weak to the Energy Ball from the Ludicolo. So at that point, it's just the Ferrothorn to beat, and if you can find a way to beat that Ferrothorn, the rain mode seems very potent.
So, I mean, I even think, though, perhaps even leading with that rain mode, the Politoed and Ludicolo could even be just going driving right through Vincent's team in a way. He could try and do that, but we also didn't see the Gardevoir at all. Maybe we'll be seeing it in this game too, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that Vincent was pretty happy with his game 1 strategy, and I don't think there's much reason to bring Gardevoir here. Definitely an option. It is your Mega Pokemon, so obviously it has a big role on this team. I think he was pretty comfortable with the mons that he brought, though. Ferrothorn and Tapu Fini gives you very good switches to Rain, and the Landorus and the Incineroar give you good answers to the rest of the team. So we're going to see a lot more of the same, but the rain this time.
Yeah, like I just mentioned, we are going to get the rain portion for Jake's team, that Ludicolo and Politoed, and Landorus and Tapu Fini for Vincent's side. So already it looks like a pretty offensive pressure from Jake, and he could kind of steamroll Vincent, but again, Vincent does have that Tapu Fini, and that could put a bit of pressure against the Politoed.
Yeah, the thing I'm worried about here is a potential Ferrothorn switch in from Vincent. If he gets it in on a slot that's relatively safe, he should be able to pressure this rain mode really, really hard. Energy Ball definitely is an option on the Fini, but Ferrothorn's always looming in the back.
Landorus switch out by Vincent, bringing in that Ferrothorn you just mentioned. So we'll see if he goes for the fake out on it. Does he go for that slot? He does. So gets the fake out, but the Iron Barbs, it's going to do a bit of damage onto it. But Tapu Fini just going to start setting up that Calm Mind, so any damage dealt to its special attack specifically from that perhaps Giga Drain or Energy Ball from Ludicolo isn't going to be doing as much. But Palito now with the Scald targeting that Ferrothorn, but thanks to that Misty Terrain, isn't going to be dealing any type of burn condition thanks to the Misty Terrain.
That's a crucial Calm Mind there for Vincent, as every Calm Mind that you go for puts you into a much safer range so that you can take Energy Balls much better, or even a potential Giga Drain if the Ludicolo carries that instead. And, if you get to the point where, even the Ludicolo can't break through the Tapu Fini, you get to a point where, the Rainbow just really isn't that helpful here.
Well, Palito going for the Protect this turn as Ludicolo gets the Giga Drain, but thanks to that Calm Mind, won't be dealing as much damage. It will be healing back to almost full health. Tapu Fini with the Moonblast, it does target the Palito slot, so won't be dealing any damage, but Power Up is going to connect onto that Ludicolo. That's going to do a whole lot of damage, but just keeping it in the yellow right now as Tapu Fini does recover a bit of that health there thanks to the leftovers.
Yeah, Tapu Fini will be able to fire off another Moonblast into the Politoed slot, and Ferrothorn should be able to also just throw another Power Whip into Ludicolo if it so wants to. I don't believe that Giga Drain should be able to heal the Ludicolo out of Power Whip range, definitely not. Maybe it would heal it out of a potential Moonblast range, but depending on the item of this Ludicolo, it's definitely possible that, a Moonblast would still KO even after some Giga Drain recovery.
Yeah, exactly. I think Vincent is a really strong position right now thanks to that Ferrothorn. It's really keeping him in position here thanks to its typing, but also the Tapu Fini also giving a good support. He did get that Calm Mind prediction, so he's going to be able to dish out a bit more damage thanks to it. But Ludicolo switching out for Jake now, bringing in his own Incineroar, so perhaps we'll see a fake out later this next turn, but Moonblast from the Tapu Fini targeting down that Politoed. Boost in that special attack takes it to almost about 1/3 in damage, but Encore from Polito targets that Tapu Fini, so it'll only be able to do Moonblast these next couple of turns. But again, a power up onto that Incineroar, even with that the typing of it, still does about 1/4 to it though.
Yeah, I think that was a relatively smart play by Jake there, since he realizes that you have your rain mode out. You need to find a way to deal with that Ferrothorn. Like, you can't just let it sit there on the field. So he switches in Incineroar, but obviously with the Tapu Fini there, you have to feel a little bit threatened. He finds a way to get his Incineroar in without having to risk it taking a Muddy Water the next turn by going for the Encore there. So a really cool play there by Jake. He could just stay in, still fire off some Moonblast into the Incineroar, still going to do a large amount of damage. He's not forced to switch to keep his Ferrothorn in. He could just switch it out into something like the Landorus if he feels like he's going to take too much damage from Flare Blitz. But I think we saw in the last game, Ferrothorn still should be able to take this relatively well in the rain.
Yeah, I mean, we even saw, I believe he let out with that Landorus too, so he could also switch that back in and get another Intimidate drop. But Ferrothorn just going to go for a Protect for this turn as Tapu Fini gets a Moonblast again. Thanks to the Encore, it's forced to just use that move. Targets down to Polito, takes it right under half, and gets a special attack drop. But Polito goes for another Scald, perhaps trying to predict the switch on that Tapu Fini spot. But really, it doesn't need to switch. It has that boost from the Calm Mind, as Flare Blitz looks like went into the Ferrothorn slot. So really, Vincent's still in a really strong position right now.
Yeah, this is a very simple turn for Vincent, I believe. I think you just go for another Moonblast into the Politoed and maybe switch out into the Landorus here. By going for this, you can pick up a knockout on the Politoed so that if you switch in your Landorus, you get the Intimidate down on the Incineroar. But by taking a knockout on the Politoed, your Landorus isn't risking taking a Scald on the switch. And so I think it's a relatively safe play from Vincent.
Well, I think it's like you just predicted, Ferrothorn switching out. There is the Landorus coming right back in. Perhaps we're going to get a Scald from the Politoed if Jake predicted that correctly. There's the Intimidate on both of Jake's Pokemon. Polito going for the Protect now, maybe predicting the Power Whip from the Ferrothorn. Moonblast is going to target that Politoed too, but Flare Blitz, does it target that Ferrothorn slide? But if it does, it's still going to do a good amount of damage and could even get the burn status thanks to it being a flying type, but no burn, and the rain is going to stop for this turn as leftovers recovery for that Tapu Fini.
Let's see if Encore wears off there. There might be one more turn. Yeah, one more turn of Encore here. So Moonblast still, we'll take out the Politoed. Still definitely an option. Rock Slide is actually something that you might not want to go for if you're Vincent, because you don't want to risk activating the berry on the Politoed, because that might let it heal outside of the range of Moonblast. So maybe you just go for something like a U-turn off the Incineroar, reveal your last mon, and bring that in.
Well, I think it's just like you predicted, U-turn, but instead he does go for that Incineroar this time, taking it well under half there. Perhaps he's maybe Well, I don't even think a Moonblast would get the KO on Polito because it should be able to take that even with the +1 in special attack. But instead, there's a switch out. Incineroar for Vincent's side, he's going to bring out his own. And Moonblast from the Tapu Fini will be targeting the Polito, but we'll see if it's enough there. It is. So, okay, still going to take it out thanks to the Calm Mind boost. So, Tapu Fini for Vincent playing that pretty good as there is, I believe that was, what was that? Was the...
Insidium Z.
that was, okay. All right, that was really quick. And yeah, okay, there's the Encore turn that we anticipated.
And there's no more rain turns, so Ludicolo is stuck without Swift Swim for the rest of the game. And we are going to see Tapu Koko, which is probably the best thing Jake could have brought to maybe potentially get himself back into this game. He still has to deal with the Landorus, which is going to be a really big problem for him to deal with. But with 3 Mons left, I think he just needs to make sure that he continues to apply pressure to the Landorus as it chooses to come in, as it eventually will. Thunderbolt probably won't pick up a knockout on the Tapu Fini, not after the Calm Mind boost. It'll be pretty close, but that doesn't look like it's enough chip damage to pick up the knockout here. So he has to be very careful about this turn if he wants to try and keep his Koko on the field.
Yeah, I mean, either or, I think, but also has to predict the Landorus slot switch in as Vincent just switches out the Pokemon on his side, brings in the Landorus, gets Intimidate, dropping another attack stage onto that Incineroar. We'll see. We're gonna have to see what that Tapu Koko does. He does go for the Protect instead, so maybe predicting a target onto that slot. But there is a there is an attack onto that, and there's a knockoff onto Landorus. So Landorus gonna be losing that Choice Scarf now. So thanks to that, Tapu Koko is gonna be the fastest Pokemon on the field.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty huge knockoff rather, because now the Landorus is going to be slower than the Tapu Koko, allows you to go for something like an HP Ice or a Dazzling Gleam, and pick up a knockout on the Landorus, which would have just like outsped and gone for Earthquake otherwise. So, a little bit of breathing room here for Jake, but the Incineroar still has the potential to do massive damage to the Koko.
Well, Landorus switching out for Vincent's side, bringing in back his Tapu Fini, probably just trying to reset that terrain, and with that, electric type attacks will be losing their boost there. But Incineroar now switching out for Jake's side, bringing out his Ludicolo, so perhaps he was trying to do a prediction by that by the Incineroar, but there is the Hidden Power. Looks like it was the Hidden Power Ice, like you mentioned, onto that Tapu Fini, so not very effective as Flare Blitz from the Incineroar is going to target that Tapu Koko and just barely lives in the red right there.
Yeah, and with this Koko at such low health, it either needs to stay in, maybe hope you crit the Fini, or maybe switch out into the Incineroar. But it does not look too great for Jake. He's going to need to, pick up a knock on the Landorus specifically. But I think he's just running out of HP to spend on switch, since he's taking so much damage every turn. And unless he can take a key knockout to stop himself from taking damage, I'm pretty sure Jake needs to find some sort of shovel to dig his way out here.
And I mean, Vincent also has to, Jake has to also watch out for a random switch in of the Landorus if he gets the prediction from the Thunderbolt. But there's a Tapu Fini switch out for Vincent. In comes the Ferrothorn, so if he did go for the electric type attack, it won't be doing that much damage. But Ludicolo goes for the fake out. It does target onto that Ferrothorn slot, so once again taking a bit more of that Iron Barb damage. Still hanging on there, but another Z move. This is going to be the Electrium Z. So we can
Gigavolt Havoc.
Fine. I'm waiting for the text. But yeah, so Gigavolt Havoc, it's just going to be dealing a lot of damage here. We'll see if it goes with a Ferrothorn or not, but otherwise it'll be still doing a lot there, right?
Yeah, regardless, you got to do a decent amount. And that's the Incineroar, and let's see if this can hang on. I don't think from this range it can.
No. Yeah, no. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
I thought it had a chance with the Misty Terrain, but enough chip damage on it to make it not.
Yeah, it's about like a 20% chip damage on, so
yeah. Right.
All right, cool. But with that, Incineroar is gone, and in its place is Landorus. So because of that, he doesn't have that Choice Scarf because of the knockoff from earlier. So still, it's going to be pretty close. Tapu Koko is still going to be a fast one on the field, so it could still go for the Hidden Power Ice now.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's great because, now he can actually just pick up a knockout here. And if you just get Incineroar into a good position to KO the Ferrothorn, maybe you can go for a crit onto the Tapu Fini with a Thunderbolt if you don't win the Terrain War in this late game. So he still has a little bit of options.
All right, well, we're going to see the switch from that Landorus. In comes the Tapu Fini. Tapu Koko going for that Protect, possibly predicting the... honestly, I think he just wants to keep it around for the terrain for later, but Giga Drain from the Ludicolo takes it well under half now, bringing it up, bringing it down to the yellow, and Ludicolo going back into the yellow now, and Gyro Ball onto the Tapu Koko, but thanks to that Protect, it'll be sticking around for another turn.
Yeah, I think something we don't know here is how fast is this Tapu Fini compared to the Ludicolo. If Ludicolo is able to go first here and just pick up a knockout on the Tapu Fini, I don't think that Landers in the back really wants to take a Gauge Drain either. So no real switch in here. Just the ability maybe just go for Protect with the Tapu Fini and go for an attack with Ferrothorn and pick up a knockout that way. And if that's the case, then Jake probably has to read this and go for a switch to Incineroar, which he is going for.
Yeah, there's a switch for Jake. He's going to bring in that Incineroar. We'll see if Vincent predicted it and went for perhaps a Muddy Water, but instead we're just going to get a Protect from it. Probably predicting the Tapu Koko going for a Thunderbolt. As Ludicolo goes for a Giga Drain, it is going to be protected, but there is the Power Whip from the Ferrothorn. Who does it decide? Does go for the Ludicolo, so that should be a knockout thanks to it having a pretty low defensive stats.
Yeah. Still not over yet because that Incineroar does have Fake Out here. So with Coco coming in, you can go for something like a Thunderbolt into the Fini and a Fire Move into the Ferrothorn. And if you call correctly whether or not the Fini's going to stay in and take the Thunderbolt, or if it's going to switch out and go for HP Ice, like you're in a pretty good spot. I mean, I think you just need to. It's a matter of just calling this turn.
Yeah, really. It's like you said. I think the safe bet. You have to go for the Flare Blitz onto the Ferrothorn, but I think calling it right now is the Tapu Koko.
Yeah, and the Tapu Fini went for Protect last turn. It did not take the Giga Drain damage, so a switch is definitely likely, but he could just read into this, stay in, and try and catch an HPI. So a lot of mind games here. Potentially could switch out the Ferrothorn as well, but I think that more involves him either again reading into an HPI into that slot, or maybe just hitting a double Protect, one of the two.
Yep, it's either or. This is going to be a very critical turn here for Jake and Vincent. So we're going to go down. Oh, wow. Okay, never mind. As someone just pointed out, he is down to 28 seconds for Jake. So this is going to be really important. There's a switch out into the Landorus. Did Jake call it? Did he go for that Flare Blitz? Did he go for the Hidden Power Ice onto that slot? There's Tapu Fini. It's just going to go for the Protect. Double Protect. It fails. Tapu Koko goes for the Hidden Power Ice. Who did he target? Oh, no. He went for Tapu Fini. So taking it right under half. Well, a bit of a critical hit, but Flare Blitz now. Who does he go for? Does he go for
knockout?
Go for Tapu Fini? No, goes for Landorus. Is it? Oh, it does get the knockout. So even with that attack drop from Incineroar, it's still not going to be enough, and does get the KO.
Oh,
but,
and wow!
Wow. Okay.
Barry activates. Oh,
That's
wow!
Perfect timing for Jake, thanks to the recoil from the Flare Blitz, activating its Figgy Berries. So Jake in a really good spot.
Yeah, I think this game all turned around with that catching the Landorus with the knockoff on the switch in, and knocking off that Choice Scarf gave the Tapu Koko a lot more wiggle room to work with, and even with the -1 attacks, that Incineroar should be able to pretty cleanly pick up a knockout on this Ferrothorn, and Thunderbolt should be able to KO the Tapu Fini. So
yeah.
Jake, like we said, he needed to find a shovel somewhere, and he dug his way out of this.
Yeah, he clawed his way back right now. Protect from the Ferrothorn, going for it right now, but. Even honestly, just a Thunderbolt and a Flare Blitz that should pretty much seal it with the Thunder though onto the Tapu Fini and Flare Blitz into that Ferrothorn. So now, I don't think we've seen all of Tapu Koko's electric moves. Was there a Volt Switch?
I don't think there is. There is no. It's just Thunder.
Okay.
I believe it's Dazzling Gleam HP Ice. So he has to potentially hit a Thunder here. He also has to worry about running out of time.
Wow, he hits the Thunder, does get the connecting onto that Tapu Fini, and then Flare Blitz should seal it. But wow, really under the clock here on that 16 seconds.
Yeah, super close game. Let's just see if this Flare Blitz picks up a knockout. It absolutely should, but I've seen crazier things.
You never know.
Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Times 4. Okay, still going to be enough to knock it out. There's the Iron Barbs, but Jake's skirt check brings us down to 1-1, and we are going into Game 3 of top 4.
Oh, wow. That was one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one heck of a game. I mean, it literally just came down to getting that knockoff onto that Landorus on the switch, and that was insane. Like, that gave him everything that he needed to get back to the game, get Coco into a position where he could win. Maybe a few too many switches, and I think also a really key moment was when Giga Drain went into the Fini on the switch and took half of its health, and that made it so that Tapu Fini just couldn't go for an attack that turn. Had to worry about being knocked out before potentially moving, since Ludicolo probably is a little bit faster, has a little bit of speed investment because it is on the Rain team. It is a Swift Swim on, but and Tapu Fini usually a little bit slower, usually a bit bulkier. So with the fear of getting knocked out, that was honestly just an amazing endgame.
Yeah, literally, even with all the switches that Vincent was doing to outmaneuver Jake, Jake still was able to come back, and with the correct predictions on his part, was able to get back into Game 3. So really phenomenal game right there. But going in now into this Game 3 between both players, wow. I mean, even a Ludicolo Palito can still work, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to bring out their other Pokemon in case try maybe again for those surprises. We still haven't seen that Gardevoir.
Yeah, I think that I don't know. I still don't think he wants to bring that Gardevoir. I think Vincent's very confident with how that last game played out.
Yeah.
Maybe if he wants to make some sort of change, maybe he goes for the Zapdos. Gives him a little bit of you know things he can do with Tailwind and do stuff like that. I don't necessarily know how useful that is. I think that Vincent's got a good idea with the same 3 months. I want to see what Jake wants to bring though, since that was really good for Jake. I think that the Gothitelle in Game 1 like had the potential to do a lot, and he just wasn't able to capitalize on it. And maybe well the rain the rain lead did like win the game. It didn't necessarily put him in the position to win the game. He had to get a pretty big read in the middle parts of the game. So maybe Gothitelle helps him get there a little bit better.
I mean, he also had the U-turn from the Landorus, so he's
Right.
able to still switch out and get around that Shadow Tag. But we are going to Game 3 between Jake and Vincent. Jake leading with the Incineroar and Tapu Koko. Vincent with the Landorus and the Tapu Fini. But with the changes in terrains now, Misty Terrain is on the field, so Tapu Koko won't be able to get that boost in its electric attacks.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe Jake wants to go for a very aggressive play. He could go for something like a fake out and an HP Ice into the Landers. We do know it's a Choice Scarf, so it's likely not that bulky. And we've seen Vincent very prone to just going for those U-turns on turn 1. And Jake seems to have been having a large problem with his Landers. So if he's able to maybe pick it off on turn 1, that'd be huge for Jake. But a lot of risk involved in that. Tapu Fini can do massive damage to both Incineroar and Tapu Koko, as well as just going for a Calm Mind here. So a lot of risk involved with something like that, but it might be worth it. That Landorus was such a big problem for him in both Games 1 and Game 2 until he knocked out that Choice Scarf.
Literally just a fake out and a hidden power ice will just take out that Landorus. But again, Vincent probably has it in mind, may even want to just try and switch it out, conserve it for later. As we see it happening right now, Landorus switching out for Vincent. In comes the Incineroar, so he'll be able to possibly go for that fake out this next turn. But Tapu Fini going for a Protect now in case of any type of attacks from that Tapu Koko. There's the fake out onto that Incineroar. Does it go? Okay, we get the Gigavolt Havoc from the Tapu Koko already.
I doubt this is into the Landorus. It's probably into the Tapu Fini, but it's not necessarily like too risky of a play. Just go for the Gigavolt Havoc, get some damage onto the Tapu Fini, even if it protects. Likely not enough to pick up a knockout on the following turn, just because terrain is not active. But some good chip damage nonetheless. The only problem is this is a leftovers Tapu Fini, as we have seen. So a bit of a lackluster turn for Jake, but not the end of the world. He's got a little bit of chip damage. He's burned his Z move in the process, unfortunately.
I think that's fine. I mean, it's still, he's had to take a gamble, and with the Landorus out, he still had that chance to go for it, but spreading out your attacks still works out for him, and being able to get some chip damage could make a difference later on if he gets the KO for it. But with Incineroar, both Incineroars now facing down each other, Vincent does have the chance to go for the fake out if he decides to.
Right. I think this is going to be where I think this is where we're going to see whether or not he brought the Rainbow in the back, or maybe brought Gothitelle Mawile in the back, because that Tapu Fini is putting on a lot of pressure here.
There's the fake out from Vincent, targeting Tapu Koko for Jake and Calm Mind for the Tapu Fini. So slowly going to try and set that up, and thanks to the Misty Terrain, doesn't have to really deal with any type of boost in those electric attacks. Special defense, special attack boost, knockoff now from Incineroar does target Vincent's Tapu Fini, losing that leftover. So no more chip recovery thanks to it.
Yeah, so without that leftovers recovery, he's going to be able to just chip away at the Fini. If he does have something like the Ludicolo in the back, he doesn't have to worry about the Tapu Fini healing out of range of maybe taking multiple Giga Drains. Maybe now without the leftovers recovery, he can just fire 2 Giga Drains off onto it, fire a Thunderbolt plus a Giga Drain off onto him, be in a pretty decent spot. But again, I think it's going to come down to what are the 2 mons that Jake has in the back, because I think they're very important with how he wants to deal with the Tapu Fini.
Also, just to point out, look at that your time, really. Jake really taking the time on his turn compared to Vincent. He's still well over 4 minutes. Tapu Koko switch out by Jake. In comes the Politoed. So with that, Tapu Fini and all rain type Pokemon do get that boost in its water type attacks. There goes Politoed's Drizzle ability, but we'll see which Pokemon goes first. Incineroar actually switching out as well, so it looks like the rain mode for Jake is coming in. There is the Ludicolo, so thanks to that rain boost, it will be able to double its speed. Protect from the Tapu Fini, preventing any type of attacks this turn, but double switch isn't really going to make a difference. Flare Blitz now from Incineroar, but thanks to that, rain isn't really going to be doing a whole lot of damage, and it's also water typing for Politoed. So a bit of chip damage there, but Jake really able to take advantage of that and just doing the double switch and predicting Vincent's turn.
Yeah, I was wondering if we were going to see this play last turn, but I agree with the knockoff onto the Tapu Fini. Make sure you knock off those leftovers and make sure Ludicolo's in a better spot. You can't just freely go for a Giga Drain into the Tapu Fini because of the fear of a Malicious Moonsault from the Incineroar, knocking out your Ludicolo, and that's something that's really, really bad for him, so I don't think he's going to want to just like give that up.
Well, just like you said, Ludicolo switching out for Jake. He's just trying to conserve that for later. He did get the rain set up already. In comes the Incineroar and the Moonblast from Tapu Fini, targeting down that Politoed. It did get that boost in its Calm Mind and taking it right at about half. And there is the move. It is the Malicious Moonsault from the Incineroar. Who do you think is probably a good target for it? But really?
I'm assuming this is Ludicolo.
Yeah, it's probably Ludicolo. Yeah, so probably a good switch by Jake being able to conserve it for this turn, I guess.
Yeah, and by taking out the Z move on the Incineroar, both trainers have been able to neutralize the opponent's Z moves and get them into a spot where they're not going to be taking that much damage. The Incineroar is going to take only about still about a decent chunk, like 35-40% from that. And Skull is going to be big. How much does this do?
Yeah, it's also in the rain as well. So but still able to live it in the red thanks to that probably the Assault Vest onto it because most Incineroar won't really be able to handle that.
Point to the sky. Let's smooth salt. But still, Incineroar taking a lot of damage from that, and it puts it in a range for pretty much anything that Jake wants to go for to pick up a knockout on the Incineroar, which is really, really good for him.
So Incineroar is just naturally bulky.
Yeah, it's really, really bulky. The Assault Vest just makes it even bulkier on top of that.
All right, Politoed switching out now. In comes the Tapu Koko, reactivating the Electric Terrain, but Incineroar deciding just go for a Protect this turn, probably fearing that Politoed. But there is the Fake Out. It is going to target that Tapu Fini, so pretty much went in for free that Tapu Koko for this turn. So really nice play by Jake.
Oh, so let's see what these Slender calc looks like on the Fini, since there's a lot of different things that are going on here. It's a Thunder, but it's not Life Orb boosted. It's just a normal Thunder because he already used the Z move, but it's
terrain.
In terrain, but with a +1 special defense Tapu Fini. I believe this should be enough to pick up the knockout, almost certainly, and Incineroar can go for something like a low kick into the opposing Incineroar and try and pick up a knockout that way. So I think Jake is posed for a pretty good turn, but he has to be careful of something like a Lander switching in.
Definitely. Considering we already saw that earlier this game, depending on what he decides to do. But okay, Tapu Fini switching out, but instead brings in the Ferrothorn. So we'll see if Jake predicted and went for a Flare Blitz, but instead there is the Thunder from it, like you called, is going to be able to connect onto that Ferrothorn. So with the Electric Terrain boost, it still only does about 1/3 onto it. And there's the Darkest Lariat from Vincent's Incineroar, likely targeting that Tapu Koko, but taking it right at about half thanks to its Fairy typing. And Incineroar with the knockoff going onto that Ferrothorn, bringing it right under half. Iron Barb's activating as well as knocking off the Zoom Lens. That's not really an item you see on Ferrothorns.
No, but hitting those Power Whips can be super important. So
and Leech Seeds, perhaps.
And Leech Seeds, so yeah, definitely interesting item, but one that kind of makes sense. Yeah, so he can just go for 2 attacks here, pick up knockouts. Again, he just doesn't worry about that Incineroar, the Lander is coming in. Since Thunder plus Flare Blitz should definitely be able to pick up knockouts on both these Pokemon, but the problem here is Incineroar coming in, Lander's coming in to take a Thunder is definitely something that Jake has to worry about.
Incineroar switching out for Jake. In comes the Ludicolo. So still, again, it's still fearing that Ferrothorn though, but Vincent switching out that Ferrothorn. In comes the Tapu Fini, just resetting that terrain again. I guess he does not want to have to deal with that Electric Terrain. So Mystic Terrain now taking the stage, and what will the Incineroar do? But first, Tapu Koko with the Hidden Power Ice onto that Landorus spot. So good switch by Vincent there, and Darkest Lariat from that Incineroar. We'll see what it targets here. Possibly, it's still, yeah. Okay, so I guess dealing with the Tapu Koko doesn't really like it thanks to the terrain and the thing that also super effective against Tapu Fini.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a riskier spot now because if you do want to pick up the knockout on Incineroar with the Tapu Koko, you do have to go for something like a Thunder. Dazzling might be able to pick up the knockout here, and you can just go for a Giga Drain to follow it up, but you just have to be careful because you don't know if the Dazzling will KO. It should, but we already saw how bulky that Incineroar is. I think that if he does carry Dazzling, then we should be able to go for it here and be in a pretty good spot.
And again, just pointing out, Jake, again, it's right under 2 minutes, so both players have all 4 of their Pokemon available. So if Vincent does decide to try and stall out, he may be able to take advantage of that. Dazzling Gleam from the Tapu Koko, hitting both Pokemon, is able to take out the Incineroar. So Jake is still ahead by 1 Pokemon against Vincent as he loses it. And Ludicolo with the Giga Drain onto it, but thanks to that ×4 resistance, isn't really going to do a whole lot of damage there.
Yeah, and by doing this, you put the Farthorn into range with like an HP Ice from the Tapu Koko. Landorus is going to come in and put a little bit of pressure on both the Tapu Koko and the Ludicolo. You can go for any kind of attack into the Koko and pretty much pick a knockout. And U-turn does a lot of damage to the Ludicolo. I wonder, this looks like a pretty rough spot for Vincent. Is he just going to go for the Rock Slide? Definitely picks up a knockout on Tapu Koko. If he's able to flinch the Ludicolo, he'll be able to follow it up with the Power Whip and potentially take 2 knockouts this turn.
Yeah, it's going to be really close depending on how much damage his Landorus is going to be able to deal with. But Ludicolo switching out, probably going for the Politoed, so he'll be able to reset the rain thanks to Politoed's Drizzle ability. But we'll see if the Tapu Koko goes for that Hidden Power Ice onto the Landorus slide, or if it's just going to go for another U-turn another U-turn from that Landorus goes into the Politoed, but it's going to first activate that 50% berry, healing it right all the way back up thanks to it. And there is going to be the switch out. So good switch by Vincent, just being able to conserve it for later, really.
The big thing here is that Tapu Koko is going to be able to get a knockout. It did not go for a protect, it did not go for a protect. Is this Thunder? Is that the Feeny?
Okay, who does it connect with? Did he get? Yeah, he did call the U-turn from it.
Wow.
So does lose that Tapu Fini. So Jake already really ahead. Just losing 2 Pokemon in what, 2 turns?
Yeah, let's see if the Gyro Ball's on the Koko, and it is, and that's actually kind of good for Jake.
Yeah.
Because he's able to bring the Ludicolo now, and we know for a fact that the Ludicolo is going to be faster than the Landorus because of Swift Swim. And if that's the case, you can just go for an Ice Beam into the Landorus or a Scald into the Landorus, as well as a Scald into the Ferrothorn from the Politoed, which should be able to pick up a knockout even on that really bulky Grass type Ferrothorn from this range.
There's the Ludicolo for Jake. Vincent sends out his Landorus Therian. So with that double in the speed, he does have the fake out as well from the Ludicolo, but this looks like Jake's game right now.
Yeah, just going for 2 Scalds here should be enough to clean up the game. There's the switch in the back, or there's no switch into the back. It's just Incineroar's already been knocked out, so you just Scald twice, pick up 2 knockouts, and win the game. And I think this is pretty much just wrapped up.
Yep. Here's possibly the last turn. Ice Beam from Ludicolo, targeting that Landorus. ×4, taking it right out of here. So Landorus going down now, followed up with an Encore from that Politoed. So Jake possibly just trying to secure, doesn't want to, maybe he'll get the low end damage, and just keeping it there so he doesn't have to be worried about any type of Power Whips and securing the game. There's the Gyro Ball from that Encore, thanks to it, dealing damage onto the Politoed, but a quick Ice Beam from Ludicolo should seal this up.
Yep, just to make sure that he puts in his moves in time. He's still running down on time, but yep. Vince's going to forfeit, and Jake's going to win a very, very entertaining 3-game set.
Right under a minute there, jeez.
All 3 games, too.
Yeah, no, literally.
That's the thing about these Gothitelle, Mawile, Rain teams. Even when you're not bringing the Gothitelle, you still have to think about your turns, every single turn. As we saw for the majority of the game, both players had 4 Pokemon. So a lot of things they have to think about, a lot of Pokemon they have to worry about conserving on their own side. So, see Jake thinking there every single turn and coming down and using most of his timer for both games. But honestly, I just really enjoyed that set overall.
Definitely, because like you mentioned, even though it took well under a minute, he was definitely down on time, but he was thinking out his move perfectly, and with a bit of prediction on his side, was able to secure the victory. So well played by both Jake and Vincent. So with that, we will be coming back shortly to you with the finals. Did we already decide who was the other winner? Yeah, okay, so we have Brendan Zhang versus Jake Skirchek for your finals. Stay tuned.
Baby.